So good morning, everybody. It is Thursday, May 6th. It's a bright and sunny day in Minnesota. And these are our annual sponsors, both for our show and for our 30th year here, rolling toward us. Ideal Printers, DV Creative and Harrington Langer and Associates, State Farm and the Office of Juan Cervantes, State Farm, the Sane Foundation, M Health Fairview, St. Paul Federal Credit Union, the St. Paul Port Authority, Highway Credit Union, Metro State, Sunrise Banks, Walters Recycling and Refuse, Health Partners, and Mueller Memorial. Thank you, annual sponsors. And today we're talking about Arcade and 7th Street. You know, sometimes we get a lot of mileage out of, the puns are going to be great today as we talk about roads and streets. They're just going to be fantastic. In fact, I was a little tentative about this topic until I came up with the title for today. Like word on the street. I just couldn't help myself. Like, oh, we're definitely talking about that on Thursday. It's just too fun, right? Let's go for it. So we've got mill and overlay projects coming on for Arcade and 7th. We've got Austria Castillo from the city of St. Paul on today, as well as a special guest. Hi, Austria. She's been on the show before, but it's always great to have her back. And I've got some specific questions, Austria, that'll come up later. We're going to have an informal conversation about this. We do not have a member from the program team, so you get me talking about this project. I've had several meetings about this, so yeah, thanks, Chelsea. Appreciate the thumbs up on that. But let's go ahead and do our introductions, and I'll get an agenda up for us. And you can open the chat, and we'll use that feature for our work today as well. So here comes our agenda. Let's do a little who's who. Looks like Tanya's already jumped in with an announcement there at the top of the show. So I'll also just say, let's go ahead and do our regular kind of turn on your cameras if you can for a minute, and we will go ahead and just say hi to each other. And most of us know each other on this call so far, but it'll be good for Austria to get kind of familiar with who we are too. So if you work with an East Side business, go ahead and give us a wave on the show here. If you are an East Side business, there's Chelsea from TC Tubes and Krista from Saints. Kai Lawson, I think about in that category. He's waving because he can't turn on his, or he's raised his hand. Anyway, hi Kai. An Aflac representative, and Nathan from 11 Wells. We mentioned him earlier. Hey Nathan, he's in his car. Oh my goodness.
Pulled over so I could say hi.
I'm so glad you did. I mentioned that you are the featured member deal for Isaba this week, and that you're doing hand sanitizer and have been for over a year, right, Nathan?
Yes, and we also have surface sanitizer. So if you're a restaurant or anything that, any high touch points, doorknobs, bar tops, anything like that, we have a separate formulation for that where it doesn't leave any residue. So we can keep people covered.
Well, that's fantastic. So I'm excited about getting people connected to you, Nathan, and give me some feedback too about if folks are chiming in. We'll work on figuring out how we mobilize people down there, both to connect with you, see your space, and get some hand sanitizer. Thanks for doing that.
Yeah, and I tossed it in the chat that I'm also looking for someone to do a mural on the east side of our building. So if anyone on the east side knows of someone or has worked with a community group in the past, have them get in touch. I've got my email address in the chat feature. So thanks
fantastic.
A lot. That's awesome. Nathan, I'm going to suggest too, I don't know if you reached out or connecting you to our friends at the Creative Enterprise Zone. As you know, they have a chromosome event that they do over in the Midway area, working with a whole plethora of awesome local artists and muralists. So I'd be delighted to connect you to Catherine Reed Day with Creative Enterprise Zone, who could certainly open up the doors to awesome muralists.
That would be fantastic. Thank you.
That's great,
I need
Tanya.
some help too.
Okay.
Nicole's got some ideas. Oh, that's great. Okay, well, you all just pile on over there and make good things happen. That's terrific. So let's go East Side Nonprofits. Who do we have on for East Side Nonprofits today? We've got Nicole McMahon from the Minnesota Humanities Center, Krista Schnelly from Historic Mounts Theater, Chelsea from MN 350 and St. Paul 350, Kayla from East Side Elders, Elaine from Hazel Park Learning Center, and me from Isaba. There we go. Okay, cool. if you are, a sponsor and, part of the public-private partnership that is the St. Paul Port Authority, and you've got that beautiful kind of summer shot of St. Paul in the background, give us a wave. Thank you, Tanya Bauer, for being on the show and being a fantastic ISAPA board member and sponsor too. I'm glad you're here. And for having a mural connection from the Midway for Nathan. We should race Tanya for Midway connections, see if we can get her some St. Paul connections out there for Nathan too. Anyway, we'll work on some East Side connections is what I mean. Anyway, the Midway's in St. Paul. All right, we all know that. So here we go. We've also got awesome representation today from the city of St. Paul. Let's represent the city for a minute. Give us a wave if you're from the city. There's Austria. We're glad you're here from PED, and I think about that for Segal too from the police department. Segal, we're glad you're here. So thanks for being a part. Segal is our liaison for the police department that works with businesses and works with landlords, and it's always good to have her on the show. Okay, so that's us. She's having camera difficulties. That's a bummer. Okay, because it's always good to see your smile on the show too. Hey. We'll do a police update in a little while. I think Senior Commander Kurt Hallstrom also said he might be able to get on the show. Segal, is it okay if we do that update after we do the main topic?
Yep, we can do that.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for hanging out with us today. All right, as usual, if you'd like to drop your contact information, a little bit about what you do in the chat, that helps us continue to connect with each other, especially those of you who have multiple hats on today. That's always kind of a good way to have a reference in the chat. You'll see that in our agenda, we're going to talk a little bit about this topic. And as I said, I've got some specific questions that I think will make sense for Austria, but invite her to just chime in anytime as we kind of begin to cover this topic. I want to give you an idea of what's happening with this project. And this is going to be a highly interactive show today. So we've got some opportunities to really talk about this. Oh, there's Anne DeJoy. Hey, Anne.
Good morning.
We can only see the top half of Anne there.
I know.
Okay. There she goes. Now we've got all of Anne. Anne from ESNDC. Glad to have you today, Anne. This is such an exciting topic. We were just about to dive into it.
Okay.
So here we go. I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to talk a little bit about this project, and I'm going to do it by getting us in through the ISABA website, if I can, although give me just a second and figure out how I'm going to do that, because it's not popping up for me. So I'm gonna put that down, I'm gonna close that. Let's see if it will come up now. Here we go. I think, let's see if this is it. Okay. As you know, if you've seen the invite for today's meeting, here's some of the information, and it's all right in the invite. So you can find these live links right on the invite that we worked with to promote today. 2024 is the start date for a mill and overlay project for Arcade and East 7th. There's some ways that we can give some feedback. One is via an online survey, where the live link is right here. This is about use. This isn't about what you want to see so much as how you use the streets and what your experiences are. So we're going to talk about that today and get you primed for that survey. And also, I'm just excited to bounce these ideas around. Another thing you'll find right on our website is this interactive map. Now, this is exciting because it shows you the project area and it shows you where people have chimed in so far. So you see here we have downtown St. Paul. We're talking about the area from the edge of downtown, East 7th Street, all the way up to the intersection at Arcade, and then all the way north out of the city and beyond. All right, so we're headed out beyond Larpenteur here, the city's boundary, north. So the whole stretch of Arcade that is in the east side, and the whole stretch of East 7th that's on the east side. We'll come back to these comments in just a second. I want to show you the project. If you click right here on East 7th and Arcade, then you'll see the project website, the project homepage, sorry. And this is how I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the scope of the project, and then we can talk about where we're going. But here you see that, well identified intersection and scope for the project. So this has been coming for a long time, and some of you have had conversations about this before, and have been excited about where we're going with a mill and overlay. But just to give you an idea, in the conversations that I've had with the project team about this lately, part of what they're really focused on are some very particular things. And you'll see here in the summary of the work, you can read these yourself and some of the things that they're focused on. But in particular, they've done a St. Paul study to help with the mill and overlay. And they are also looking at Safe Routes to School, which is a program that looks at safer crossings, especially around schools. And you know, we've got a couple of schools in this area, especially along Arcade, Farnsworth and Johnson High in particular. But working on safer routes to school, they're looking at 3 different things as a result of those studies that they've done already: reducing travel speeds, traffic calming, and safer crossings. So those 3 things. You know that Arcade is a state highway. That's why MnDOT's working this project, and so is 7th Street. It's Highway 5 and Highway 61. And you know, though 7th Street doesn't feel like a highway all the time, there's certainly moments when it does feel like a highway. And certainly north on Arcade here, that often feels like a speedway. So we'll talk a little bit about your experiences of that too, but one of the things that happens as people come off of the highway experience that they're having and come into the east side, there's a transition there that some people just never make. I mean, it just keep on, it's straight. You know, they went from 4 lanes in their mind down to 1 lane, but they didn't really make the transition in their head. So this is part of what the project team is really focused on and part of what a mill and overlay can address. So, and what they're thinking about, and the way that a mill and overlay really addresses that is reducing travel lanes. That's what it often comes down to. That's what all these 3 things point to. If you're looking at reducing travel speeds, traffic calming, and safer crossings, you're looking at reducing lanes. So part of what the project team is going to do is take our public input, which they've done through some virtual meetings, which are over now. I attended one. I know Ann was on the list to attend one too. Did anybody else get a chance to attend one? Just kind of give a wave or throw your hand up. Just throw your hands up if you got to be a part of those meetings. Yeah, they were a little like that to some degree, because we haven't seen the technical options yet. The technical options are still coming. They'll take our input. This is how projects like this go. They'll take our input, and then they will go ahead and put together some options for us. This interactive map is one of the ways that they're taking our input that I want to encourage you to take a look at, and we'll take a look at here as I ask you my first question, which is, what are your experiences on East 7th and on Arcade? So let's look a little bit just before I click out of the sharing mode and look and see what some of the comments are that they've heard so far. Let's zero in on 7th Street first, and then we'll come to Arcade. So here's 7th Street, and you can see here's Sweet Hollow Park. There's Metro State. Sweet Hollow Cafe is about right here. Delwood Gardens is about right here. Here's the intersection at Arcade where we've got Centro Max, and here's the new crossing at right at the Consulate and Clues and Manana. All right, no comments at all there. These are the comments that they've gotten so far, and I'll just highlight a couple of them for you. Here's a pedestrian comment right at Metro State. Popular crossing for Metro State students and staff, also used by local residents. Additional physical barriers such as curb bump outs would be helpful to protect people from speeding vehicular traffic. I can't emphasize speeding enough. Here's a nice comment about protected turn arrows at 7th and Mounds, which I've experienced certainly, to ease flow of traffic from the highway ramps. So that's one of the things that they was being considered there. Love these bike comments too. So here, an interest in a link between the Bruce Vento Trail and Metro State. There really isn't one. You have to get off the trail down here and then, I don't know, just plow up the hill on the sidewalk is kind of how it works right now. Here's another bike comment that I think makes total sense. People bike on the sidewalks because it's just not safe to bike in the street. Should trade car lanes for bike lanes. These are the kinds of responses that people are dropping into this space. Here's some car comments. In the winter, there's not enough room for parked cars and cars driving in the left lane because of snow. Slows traffic down because cars need to move over to the left lane due to parked cars being too far from the curb. Curb needs to move in further on both sides of 7th if we're gonna have a parking lane, so says this person. I'm gonna turn off sharing for a minute, and I wanna just, or and we can come back to this though. I'm happy to come back to this map if you want to zero in on a particular space and look at a comment. But I just want to see you for a minute and talk a little bit about 7th Street. So I'm going to turn off sharing for a second. Here we go. Okay. Oh, we've added a few folks too, which is terrific. Welcome to the party, everyone. So talk for a minute about your experiences on 7th Street. Do some of these comments ring true? Do we need some different kinds of comments here? I see Ann nodding her head. Who would like to chime in about their experiences on 7th Street? I've got nobody. Okay, let's start with Ann. You know, you nod your head and you get called on. Go, Ann.
For me, I think it's just crossing the street as, you know, unless you go to a corner that's controlled by a light, you can, I mean, essentially every corner should be a crosswalk, right? But really, with the traffic that's going, unless you walk, you know, a block up to a traffic light, it's really difficult and quite frankly unsafe to cross the street. So and it's particularly difficult in the winter time, again, with snowbanks and the lack of shoveling in some areas, and then the freezing. It's just trying to navigate. I actually hurt my knee over the winter, and wasn't on 7th, but similar circumstances. So it's
nice. Thanks, Ann. Yeah, very, very good. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. Did you want to add anything else? Okay.
I can chime in.
Great. That's great. Go ahead. Is that Nicole?
Yeah, I get off on, I take 52 in. So I drive up 7th from 52 down to, what is it? Forest, I think is what I turn on.
Okay, yeah.
And it's gotten a lot. I've noticed the snow removal this year. They actually brought those trucks in, you know, to throw the snow. So that was an improvement. And just in general, the roads were, but it could be because it was also a pandemic and not many people were on the road. But I think the pedestrian crossing and the bikes are a problem. I know they added that one pedestrian crossing that's kind of flashing lights, but I've never seen anybody actually use it.
Ooh.
And all the days I'm driving to work, I've never seen anybody crossing.
Okay.
For me, it's like there's always cars darting out on the block, so there's not a stoplight. And then I'm always like driving through the east side looking in every single street that comes in, because there's always cars that are just like darting to get across the street.
The cross, actually, like at Hope or at Sinan. Hope has a light. Sorry. So, but you know, places to go actually all the way across.
Yes, even like the side streets when I drive down either Forest or whichever one I end up turning on. It's like I'm always looking because there's always cars, you know, if there's not a stop sign, that are just kind of stop and go, you know, right through the stop signs. And so I'm always on the lookout. That and alleys, but that's just part of city living too, is always having those extra eyes on the side of your head looking for the cars that sneak out.
Totally makes sense. I want to come back to Nicole and talk about why you don't take Arcade in a second, or you know, you come right past the intersection we're talking about. So, but when we come to Arcade, let's talk to you about that. Thoughts about 7th Street? I saw Chelsea put up a hand.
Yeah, I would just echo the comments that are on the board already, and then also what Ann said. I do walk 7th every day, and it's terrifying. It's by far the scariest thing I do. And I do use the new lights too. And there's two different kinds. One is flashing yellow, which actually works better. And the other one is a red light. Like if you push the button, it does this flashing red light. And I have been in there with the flashing red light and people still don't stop. So it's just, I don't know. It's just, it's really dangerous.
You've been at the Hawk Light. That's what they call that feature. I learned that from Stephanie Haar. It's good to see you on the call, Steph. And you look consternated, Stephanie, like this is not good. But so Chelsea, you're saying with the Hawk Light, you can turn it to red, and that doesn't make any difference.
Well, I mean, it usually does, but not always. So, and that's the thing. The not always is the problem. So, and I don't know what the solutions are, but it's dangerous. And I also strongly agree about the snow removal.
Okay.
It's really inaccessible. I mean, I can navigate it, but I don't have a wheelchair or a cane, or I'm not elderly. So, and part of that is just the hill too. There's a lot of ice. So
Yeah,
the
sure.
snow removal is a problem.
7th Street's a hill, and you don't think about it unless you're walking it, or unless you're trying to do, like a jump in your car off of the top of it as you're coming over, and you don't see that the hawk light's on red. Yeah.
And then the bike issue too is because I also bike from 7th to Arcade and then go east from there. Once I get to Phelan Boulevard, it's fantastic, or Johnson Parkway is fantastic, or the Bruce Vento Trail is fantastic. But getting from East 7th to any of those trails is really, really hard and dangerous. And you do have to ride on the sidewalk, which I think is technically illegal.
Yes. And
Yeah.
also, also just like generally common sense, a good idea if you have to go on 7th Street or Arcade.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks Chelsea. Thanks for chiming in on
Okay.
those. I see Elaine's got a hand up and Eric's got a hand up. Let's go to Elaine next.
I actually put this in the chat too. Tucked in there by Sweet Hollow is the Listening House, which serves the homeless. Definitely not commercial benefits to the neighborhood. I'm saying that all wrong because that isn't the way I feel about it. It isn't a commercial consideration, but there are pedestrians, and they aren't necessarily going to be the most aware pedestrians. And it should, during the daytime, involve a fair amount of number of people who are trying to navigate the street, get over to Listening House, which is about a block off, and they serve a lot of people.
For sure.
And it needs to be safe.
And that's mixed right in with pedestrian traffic from Metro State. Students that are working hard at getting to their classes on time and are trying to beat the light or trying to just get across there safely. Right at 7th and Mariah. Okay, thanks Elaine. Good comment, and thanks for dropping that in the chat. I saw Eric, and Eric, welcome to the show. I think you're new to us, or tell us a little bit about you for just a second.
My name is Eric Salinas. I live right off of North Street, just a block from East 7th, just over by Metro State. Frequent user, bicyclist here on this part of town. So I'm definitely all about adding bike lanes to this side of town for sure. I did notice the light that is located for the convenience of people trying to get to Mississippi Market that they recently put up, the cross light. I believe the timer is off on that. Like it kind of sets up a little early for the cars to stop, and then they get kind of aggravated because they're waiting and don't know why.
Oh no.
Then they start honking at you to cross, and you're kind of like, wait, like the cross line hasn't come up yet. So finally, like maybe after like 30 seconds of the car stopping, finally you can cross. So I'm just curious if there's a solution to not aggravate the drivers already on East 7th to know that we're just kind of waiting for the light to change for us so they don't get too, upset about having to wait 30 extra seconds.
Wow, Eric, great comment.
Yeah.
I see Stephanie R. taking that one on. I also saw Oscar making a note. Did you have anything else you wanted to say right there, Eric?
Other than that, maybe like more small business support and definitely like support of the people already, on this part of town that are trying to help their businesses thrive. And that's about it.
Okay, I want to ask you more about what you mean by small business support, but let's come back to you for just a second. Stephanie, did you want to respond before we move on? I know I'm going to Ann next. And Elaine, you still have your hand up. Do you want to say something else? Okay, so Steph and then Ann?
Yeah, I don't have an answer with the timing issue about the hot light. What?
Darn, I was hoping you were going to say you're going to fix that.
Well, I am going to figure it out. I am going to talk to Public Works and figure it out and see what we can do about it. So that piece I will take on. I just don't know what the answer is right now.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So Eric, be looking for possibilities there. Austria, also from the city. You want to chime in on that?
Sorry to interrupt. Just
no,
Stephanie, if you can add me to that. I'm actually the project manager from that project on the city's portion of funding with MnDOT, because we did a collaboration there with CVZ funding. So yeah, and I know the public works engineers that were working on that. So I can definitely, we can work together to get, this solution and figure out if there's any other issues as well.
Great.
Thank you.
Hey, and Nicole, we've now identified 2 friends for you to look for at that hawk light. Chelsea and Eric, who both use it. Perfect. So that's great. Thank you. Ann, did you have another comment or something you want to say about that?
I actually have a question. I wonder if there's any feedback or information about the intersection at Kane and 7th, because there was quite, there was a whole reconstruct done there, and with a really big wide sidewalk at the corner where Greg's Auto Body is.
Yep, I know what you're
And
talking
I'm wondering if making those improvements or making those changes, because I'm there's still a lot of traffic at that intersection, and now it sort of backs up on Payne Avenue,
Yes.
especially around 4:30 to 6:30. I'm just wondering, was that a good solution? Because it seems like there are consequences and there's more backup, and a lot of in front of some of the businesses in Railroad Island lost street parking because of that whole project. So
Ann, I'm going to take us to just look at the interactive map for a minute, and you'll see there is not a single comment about that intersection. Am I in the right spot here? Where am I? There's Sweet Hollow. This has got to be Payne Avenue right here. Yeah, 58 coming down. There's not a comment there, Ann. It's waiting for you. I mean, click and comment. Like, this is where we need to be exactly raising that kind of question. And what I hear you saying, and also, sorry, so that you see everybody, you could also see there are no comments about that hawk light either. None on this interactive map. It's time, for us to just get some comments on this interactive map. Like I said, that link, I can drop that link in the chat, or you can find that link on Isaba's invite for this meeting. These are the kinds of things they need to hear about. And that's a great, and Austria and Stephanie, like, these are things that we should take away with, like, yeah, let's get some feedback. How have they perceived those changes? That was a massive project on Lower Payne. It impacted everybody, not just at that corner, right, Ann? But what have the impacts been, and how are we evaluating that? That helps us kind of know what we want to ask for as they do this Midland overlay. They've done some stuff. How's it worked? Go ahead, Ann.
I just said I'd be willing to talk to Greg, and I know that there have been complaints from the barbershop and Carrie's Caring Hands,
Okay.
But it's a little bit off because COVID, they were closed during COVID, and so there are concerns about the elimination of on-street parking there. So I'll talk to some of the businesses and get back to you.
Oh, it's great, Ann. Totally good. And it'd be nice to integrate some of their feedback. Here's a chance for them to, this feedback loop is open until May 14th. And this is why we're having a meeting like this, because we're not going to stop talking about this after May 14th. But this is a chance for us to create some of these conversation points. And this one's not on the radar, for instance, Ann. I mean, they're not thinking about it because nobody's brought it up. So let's bring it up. Austria.
I just have a quick question for this feedback map. I guess I haven't utilized it and not really fully versed on it, but I was curious to know if they can accept multi-language like comments.
Sure.
Spanish, Somali, just different languages, so that we can have a little bit more equity on who has a voice to speak up on these.
Really quickly, just looking, it looks like all of the comments so far have been in English, but I'll show you this, Austria, in particular. Let's see if I can figure out how to get back to it easily. Here we go. On the online survey, they are accepting multiple languages for this. But again, this online survey is not like, tell me about your comment about Payne and 7th. I mean, this is about, tell me about your experience using the street. And there are a lot of drop downs and click throughs. This is the basic. So that's a great comment, Austria. And I think it's the kind of thing that maybe we should definitely just chime in and see what what we get out of it. You know, like put an interactive comment on the map in another language. We can also ask Kevin Walker that question too. Kevin Walker is our contact. He's the communications and engagement person. We can ask him that question for sure. He's working on getting their materials translated. I'm assuming that they would do translation and interpretation around whatever comments they get. Thanks for that. I want to welcome Jack Byers to the show as well. Eric, did you have another question? You've got a hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to also include that I'm part of a group that's trying to put a skate park over on this side of town.
Ooh.
And we're in the mode right now. We're trying to look for a possible location for it. We've had some ideas of where we want to put it, but we're on what is it, Payne? We want to put it on Payne.
Yep.
But we're running into obstacles as far as what they want to charge for the land. So now we're talking to Parks and Rec as well about maybe possibly putting it just off the behind Ace Hardware in that little park.
By
Yeah.
Nide Park there? Or
Yeah, yeah.
the historic, what's that park called? By Nide Lane.
I can't remember.
It's
but
East Side Heritage Park.
Thank you.
there it is. Yes. So yeah, I've been talking to a couple of folks here in town, and the plan is hopefully as we talk to Parks and Recs, they can help us build it in that area there.
This is good, and it's a good transition point, but we're not going to go there quite yet, Eric. You know, kind of pulling us toward conversations like this. Also help us ask, what do we need in the area, or what do we want in the area? And some of those things won't fall into the scope of a mill and overlay project, but it gives us a chance to talk with Austria and Stephanie and Ann and other folks and Jack, you know, other people that work on development and think about stuff like this to help us figure out how we make our way towards some of those other solutions. So thanks for bringing that up, Eric. We're going to get to, I'm going to come back to that question in just a second. I want to ask you about arcade for a second though, everybody. Let's go back to the interactive map for a minute and let's just talk about your experiences of arcade. So let's see, I'm going here and then let's go over to the interactive map again. So talk to me a little bit about, let's look at the interactive map just briefly, and then I want to get, there's many more comments on arcade, as you can see. They are a lot of bike comments, but a lot of driving comments and pedestrian comments. Let's look at one in this kind of densely populated area in here. Pedestrian lights. The stretch is choked with street parked cars. This is the area between York and Maryland where we have a lot of businesses. And we have parking on both sides of the street here, I believe. The right lane going south is always full with parked cars and limits traffic. And people are always darting around those parked cars, for instance. Abundant off-street parking here. Take away the lane, parking to accommodate wider sidewalks, bike lanes, multi-use paths. These are some of the kinds of comments you see in the arcade stretch. I'd want to invite you to talk a little bit about your experiences on arcade. I think we probably also have, here you go. Cars go way too fast through here. This is just north of Maryland. You need to eliminate a lane of traffic or install turn lanes. Okay, this is at Wheel Lock, and there were lots of comments on this during the public meeting that I was at. This intersection is confusing for cars, dangerous for pedestrians, bikes, children, dogs, pets, and other living things. I myself have been almost hit by cars multiple times. My kids like to bike and walk and park at the rec center, but they have to cross arcade to do so. Yes. So I'm going to take off screen sharing. That was an editorial liberty that I just made on that comment as well. So don't quote them, quote me. Thoughts about arcade, experiences on arcade? Folks who want to make comments about that? Let's go to Nicole for just a second. Oh, and then we'll go to Krista. Nicole, why don't you travel on arcade? That goes pretty directly, and one might think in a faster way to where you work.
You know, I've been working on the east side for 17 years now. And I very quickly learned I don't take 35 because I never like traveling down Maryland. I've gotten rear-ended a couple times.
Oh, no.
So I haven't taken 35 to Maryland in years, probably at least a decade. Even with it widening, I still just avoid it. And I used, for a little while, I tried arcade a few different times, and I just didn't like it. It's too busy. I feel like there was just too much going on. Too many pedestrians, too many parked cars, like you said, a lot of traffic in and out with all the businesses. And I really hated crossing Maryland at that intersection. Because I don't know what it is now, but there was never like an arrow there at Maryland and Arcade.
Yes.
I haven't been down there now. So it was always really hard to cross Maryland, or, you'd have to sneak around cars that were turning. You never knew if someone was going to turn into you. I hated turning on the red light to take a right on Maryland because there were, you could never see cars coming. And I just hate that intersection. And there's hardly ever any traffic on Forest in Maryland. And it's just, there's hardly any traffic in the morning besides like school bus, and the few people in the neighborhood. But yeah, I've never liked going down Arcade just because it's too busy.
Makes sense. Let's turn to Krista. Thank you, Nicole. And Forrest, hey, it's just nice to kind of groove through the neighborhood. Except that people want to scoot right across your general direction of traffic. We hear you. Krista, talk to us.
Yeah, I take Arcade often because I work out in Maplewood, just on the other side of 36, and it's easiest to get to there from downtown. I just go up by my house and hit Arcade and go up, and it is a mess with people going too fast. And if somebody's turning left anywhere along there before, like between 7th and Maryland, it's one lane. But if anybody's turning left, you've got people flying by on their right, and it's awful. I haven't had too many pedestrian things, but yeah, sometimes people they'll just walk. So you have to be, super aware, because they're not looking for traffic, or maybe they just don't care. And then after Maryland, it turns to where it's 2 lanes each direction, but sometimes there's cars parked and sometimes there's not. And between the potholes in the wintertime, when the snow's not cleared, then it's about 1.5 lanes each direction, maybe. So and people go way too fast up on that part. So
right.
Yeah, it is a wreck.
So I'm curious, I just dropped the interactive map link directly into the chat. It's on our website under this.
Thanks, I did find it. I was looking in the invite for this meeting, like you said, and all I got was a PowerPoint from that, but I did actually find it.
Instead of on the website on the event calendar is what I should have said.
Yeah.
Let's hear from Ann and then hear from Eric. And I also want to welcome Faye. And Faye, I don't think I have said your last name right in the past. Faye's on from MnDOT. Faye, so good to see you. Hi.
Yeah, I'm really glad I could join. Thanks, Paris. Yep, Faye Slimer. So my role at MnDOT is I serve as MnDOT's representative between our community partners and local entities and specific roads in Ramsey County, one of which is Arcade Street. So I'm very glad to be part of this conversation. I love that, Paris, you set this up, and just kind of organically hearing what people think and feel and what you experience is really great.
Thanks. Glad you're here to hear some of that.
Yeah.
I also shared a little bit, Faye, what you shared with me, and we're going to come back to that in just a moment. We're also going to transition a little and have some time for announcements, but I want to hear from Ann, and I want to hear from Eric, and I want to hear from Jack, actually. So Ann?
The problem I have with Arcade is, and it was mentioned earlier, when it goes from 2 lanes to 1 lane and 2 lanes to 1, and it's not obvious the transition. So for example, it's 2 lanes as you pass Johnson High School, right? And you're headed south, and then you're allowed to park on the street right at the corner of Arcade and Maryland.
Right.
There are businesses there and people park there. So you're in a lane, and then all of a sudden, oh, you got to get over, and that's a little treacherous. And then the light changes, and if there's no cars parked there and there's traffic going both ways, then you want to continue on, and you can park in front of American Legion. I remember one time I parked in front of American Legion, and Bear said, don't park there, in, you don't know how many cars have been plowed into from the, and it's a legal parking space, but it's not a safe parking space. And then it gets really narrow down by the far east. So that would be like Case and Arcade.
Right.
So it's very confusing because it's 2 lanes and 1 lane and 2 lanes and then, and then sometimes it's really not 2 lanes, but people will pass you anyway. And
Yes, they will.
and it's not peaceful at all if you're standing at the corner, like the Walgreens at Maryland and Arcade. They have a really nice little like kiosk and people hide under there when it's raining, but it's not peaceful at all. There was a time where I was meeting with Rick Howden and someone from my office, and we could barely hear each other when we were having a conversation with speeding traffic and horns and loud mufflers. And well, that's another issue. But anyway, it looks like it should be a nice, place to sit or stand while you're waiting for the bus, but it's not very pleasant.
That's great. That's good, really good feedback, Anne, that you wouldn't know if you were just driving by and weren't a pedestrian. And those are the kinds of comments that are not on the interactive map at the moment. So again, perfect opportunity to drop some of the things that you experience as East Siders right there onto the map. All right, Eric, what do you say?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate what a lot of people are saying as far as, I bike down Arcade frequently, and it is kind of getting more crowded and more, the traffic is definitely on an uptick year after year. So it could definitely use some improvements as far as widening the space to accommodate everybody and making it a little more pedestrian friendly as well.
Right on. That totally makes sense. I want to invite Jack to make a comment as well. And just also Jack Byers works with the Payne Phelan Community Council. And Jack is also kind of gathering a group together, or has gathered a group together that is doing some more in-depth work about this. And Jack, I want to invite you to just speak about what that work is and what that looks like.
Thanks, Paris, and hi, everybody. The Payne Phelan Community Council formed a task force on our board about maybe about a year and a half ago. So at the beginning of 2020, actually at the end of 2019, maybe summer of 2019. And then we started meeting with MnDOT. Well, we met with MnDOT once in January of 2020 with the we had a couple, sorry, I'm all over the place. Let me get my head together. So our board formed a task force within the board, just a small group of board members who would meet to focus on Arcade Avenue. That group met several times to, anticipate and get prepared for this project. Then we met with MnDOT in January of 2020 and expected to be meeting with MnDOT on a somewhat regular basis over the course of 2020. But then the pandemic hit. And so that group has not been meeting as much, though we did have we have had 1 or 2 online meetings with MnDOT in the interim, and we're anticipating doing that again very soon. But the intention of our group is not to really share our own personal experiences and to, get it our way, but it was to really draw out the business community, particularly the folks who operate businesses on Arcade Street. And it's very, very important to hear from them because they may have very different thoughts about how the roadway configuration should be based on their own, not just their own experience, but the experience of their customers. Sure. And what they need to operate. So we should, from my point of view and from the point of view of the Payne Phelan Community Council's Arcade Street Task Force, we should focus on not just the roadway and the configuration of the roadway, but what each stretch of Arcade needs so that those businesses can continue to thrive. Because the worst thing that could happen is that we get a perfect roadway and all of the businesses close, right? So what we really need is for the community and the businesses in the community to thrive, and then the roadway configuration should follow the economics of that. And so the tough part, as I think you all can know and can imagine, is the tough part to get those business owners and operators and business, renters, to really fully participate because they're busy running their businesses, and it's been a very tough year for those businesses. And they're not, some of those businesses are thriving, but many of them are, living and making it work on a shoestring. So that's really what our group is about. And before the pandemic, there was a start in going out to personally meet all of those business owners and get them engaged. That's been slowed down. And I think the important part now is to reactivate that and pull more of those businesses into the process before MnDOT says it's too late, we can't take any more comments.
That's great, Jack. And May 14th is when we are headed for no more comments of this kind. So that interactive map is coming down May 14th is my understanding, and Faye could confirm that. Maybe, do you have a different timeline for getting businesses engaged that you've got, Jack, that you know of? Or do some of those, so this is, as regards businesses, this is what I understand as well, that there are a couple things that we really want to hear from businesses. Number one, how does the street and on-street parking, are they on-street parking reliant? And how will on-street parking, a change in on-street parking really affect their business? A second would be, how would ADA differences that the mill and overlay might impact the Americans with Disabilities Act for access to the building be enhanced or obscured by this project? So ADA is another place we need some comment. And then the third is about alleyway access for deliveries and/or where do they get deliveries? Are deliveries coming right in the front door? How's that all work? So really getting businesses engaged with this project and process is super important. And as you mentioned, not easy. So, I guess I'd love to, and this is maybe follow up for those of us who are trying to engage with businesses. What's our timeline for getting our businesses really engaged in this? The public comment and input period ends May 14th. Does the business input period extend beyond that? I mean, I might ask Faye for some comment about that. And/or Jack, do you have an idea about that?
Paris, I just want to clarify, the public comment period for this phase ends on May 14th, but it does not end public comment. So kind of where we are in our project development is right now we're really focused on having conversations like these of what are the needs. And I, in other conversations, I keep hearing things about speeds, the way, Anne, you were describing kind of the, just, people pulling around or making left turns. I would call that traffic calming. Those are some recurring themes that we've heard a lot of. Our Safe Routes to School study really showed a need for safer pedestrian crossings. So we're gathering all of that feedback now. And as Paris said, we want to also make sure that we hear from business owners because they have maybe different needs from the corridor or perhaps more of the same on what those are. And then this fall, we will be back with actual concept drawings of different changes we could make to the road that address those needs. So, hearing the needs now helps us inform what we, I would say put into writing, but it's more like put into drawings. And then there will be more opportunities to review those, and especially for businesses where, an impact could be very specific to a location as opposed to kind of broadly on the corridor. That's where I think they'll especially want to be engaged in looking at those. And so again, that opportunity will be available this fall.
That's great, Faye. Thank you. Thanks, Jack, for the thumbs up there. We need to wrap up, and I want to give Sigal, thank you so much for staying with us, Sigal, a chance to do brief police update and about 5 minutes of that, if that's okay, Sigal. And then we've got just a couple of announcements. I want to thank you all for participating today. This has been a fun conversation. And it's not over, as Faye mentioned. Sigal of Durham from the police department. Hey, Sigal.
Hey, Paris. Thank you so much. Sorry, guys, my camera is choosing to have its own mind today, so excuse that. But The only really update that I have is I've still been continuing to do premise surveys. If you're unaware of what premise surveys are, essentially myself or Patty will come out to your property. Patty is my colleague who also does crime prevention work with the police department. And we come out to your business or property and we'll do a kind of like an evaluation or almost like an inspection using crime prevention through environmental design to give recommendations on safety measures that can be added or implemented into that space to create a safer space in general for the people who are using it, but then also to hopefully deter future crimes from occurring there. If you're interested in scheduling any of that with me, I will put my contact info in the chat, so you can feel free to reach out to me with that. We have been bringing back information regarding Cadillac converter thefts again, now that the weather is warming up. We have kind of been seeing an increase in people getting their Cadillac converter stolen. So if you're able to look at kind of underneath your car where your Cadillac converter is, we have been recommending people to put some sort of bright paint on it. If you put some sort of paint on it, oftentimes if somebody won't be able to steal that or want to take it because auto body shops won't want to buy a Cadillac converter that has some sort of paint on it as far as their reselling values. So that's something that we've been recommending. We've been trying to do kind of pop-ups to add more security screws onto people's license plates to prevent license plate thefts as well. We've been getting those really filled up super quickly. So the next time we have kind of a drop on that, Paris, I'll send you, we've been using smart sheets to have people register on certain dates and things like that. So the next time Senior Hallstrom is scheduling one of those, I'll get that sent to you so you can send it to all of the participants of ISABA so that they can have a chance to get signed up for that if that's something that they're interested in as well. Other than that, that's about all I have. I see somebody put in the chat that they've had Cadillac converters stolen a few times from their parking lots. I do recommend if you have a business or space where you've been having issues with things being stolen out of vehicles from parking lots, I do highly recommend to schedule a premise survey. We do look at inside and outside of properties. And so
great,
that would be beneficial to utilize as well.
Nicole, I just want to ask, were they vehicles, they were vehicles of participants as opposed to, do you have vehicles that just run around? I'm sorry, that doesn't make sense.
In our staff lot. It happened the last 2 years. And we always see a spike. It was in the winter time.
Wow.
And it's been some of the same vehicles, some of our same staff members. It's the SUVs, the ones that you can easily get in and out under. And we did call and report it. And then we also did have kind of safety, the community police come out and do an assessment of the building and do a training for all of our staff.
Oh, cool. Good, you've done it.
That was a nice service.
And we've also put on the Facebook pages of all the district pages and also the community partnerships page videos that are explaining what Cadillac converters are, how to kind of prevent those thefts in multiple different languages. I did the Somali one. We have one in Spanish, Karen, Hmong. And so that helps with just kind of spreading out that information to people who might not be speaking English and things like that.
Thanks, perfect. Sigal, I'll also connect you with some other members who have expressed an interest and concern about this. A couple of announcements. I want to turn to Elaine first. Elaine, talk about the vaccination bus, or are you prepared to do that?
Oh, I am absolutely prepared to do that. But first, I want to apologize for what sounded like pejorative remarks about the homeless. They are vulnerable people who don't have a voice and are very affected by traffic. And I don't always speak well in public, so I apologize for that. Okay, the reason I wanted to talk to you today is that the Department of Health, along with some partners, Blue Cross Blue Shield, MnDOT, Metro Transit, have put together several buses that give COVID vaccines. And we have been approached, Hazel Park United Church of Christ, that is our parent organization, has been approached to bring a bus to our parking lot. They come Monday through Thursday. You can pick a 6-hour slot from 9 in the morning until 8 in the evening, depending on what you think your profile will be. But they are looking to give vaccines to underserved populations. And I would not characterize the congregation of Hazel Park UCC as an underserved population. Most of us are ancient. And so we are interested in partnering with other organizations who may want to get this information out to their membership. We are interested in knowing if people have any input in terms of whether you would want evening hours or daytime hours. We would be interested in people who would be willing to contact their membership and see if they are would be willing to come and be vaccinated. And we need volunteers, but more than anything, we need some assurance before the Department of Health will book with us that we can attract underserved populations.
Sure, Elaine.
So you can contact, I'm sorry, Paris, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, drop your contact information in the chat.
It's in there.
And okay, that's great. And folks can pick that up and see if they've got people they might like to connect with a vaccine connection in District 2. That would just be totally great. So that's where Hazel Park.
Yes.
That's where
I should mention, we are located about 1 block from the intersection of White Bear and Minnehaha. And have room for a city bus, but we need to have people who want to be vaccinated.
Totally makes sense. Thanks, Elaine. So here are 2 other announcements for us. East Side nonprofits connecting through ISABA are getting ready for a Feed Our East Side Grab and Go Barbecue Cookout, which is one of my favorite long names for an event that's come out this season. It's happening on Saturday. There's some information here about just connecting residents, as well as if you have an interest in coming by, if you've got anything you'd like to distribute, there's an opportunity to do that there. And Benjamin Warner's contact is there as well. And then Cultural Star, Austria, this is a nod to your previous life and star. Cultural Star has a deadline coming up May 14th, and the link to the Cultural Star information is in the chat as well. If you have questions about that, you can of course get with me. All right, I think we're ready to wrap up. It is 12:01. You all are probably hungry and or moving on to your next hungry meeting. Want to appreciate and just thank you so much for a great conversation today. Austria, next time we have you on the show, one of the things I definitely want to follow up and kind of come back to is, and Jack, we hear this from businesses a lot too, what do we want to see in our corridors? And this mill and overlay project gives us an opportunity to look at some things, but there are a lot of other features that won't fit into this project as we hear comments. So I want us to be able to collect those comments and bring those back into conversation as we go forward with this project too. So go ahead, Jack.
I think that would be great. I think that it would be really good to, as I said, hear from the businesses, but also hear from others about how the business community, not just on Arcade, but Payne and Maryland and across the east side could be stronger.
That's great, Jack. Thank you. And Austria, I know you're a partner in that, and just appreciate you being on the show. Austria, go ahead.
Thank you, Paris, and thank you for inviting us to this meeting, and looking forward to more meetings to join in on, and wherever I can help. Or if I don't know the answer, I can definitely do the research and connect folks with the right people to get their questions answered or work towards that path. Thank you for everyone. It's really important for the city and the state to hear everyone's feedback and how we can work towards a more equitable and efficient, east side and overall city.
Thanks, Austria. Really appreciate you. Thanks, everybody. We'll say goodbye and sign off for now. See you next week. Okay, I'm going to stop recording here.